Welcome to the Dare to Be podcast. I'm your host, Austeen Heaney, and I created this space so we can learn to bring more depth to our relationship with life. I want to see each and every person walk through this world in their own unique way, and that requires courage. This podcast is meant to be a platform for life thoughts, stories, tactics, philosophy, growth, change, and evolution. So if you want to create foundation and inner sanctuary in your life and dare to live in a way that is aligned with you, then welcome. Let's get started. Welcome to the Dare to Be podcast. I'm your host, Austeen. This is episode 2. Thank you for coming back. For those of you who listened to episode 1, if you're new here, welcome. This episode, I'm excited to share this episode. It is about self-care and self-fullness. And I have a concept / philosophy, life philosophy on how to create my morning routines and how to take care of myself. And so I'm going to be sharing that on this podcast. A few things I didn't say in the first episode. This is season 1, so each season will have approximately 10 episodes, give or take 1 or 2. And most of them are going to be just me talking, but I do have this vision of having guest speakers on the episodes. Just people are so rich with experience and wisdom in ways that, I've never experienced or could never articulate, and they articulate it in their own way. And I just would really love to bring that piece to the Dare to Be podcast. So that might be a thing. I want it to be a thing. And so I'm excited to share this episode. I'm going to be completely transparent here, as is part of my whole Dare to Be way of life, is to share honestly and have courage to do so and bravery to do so. Because I think that's how we show up in relationships in general. I think that it's important in relationships in general to be honest and completely open. So a little tangent there, but this second episode really got to me. I got so into my head on how to follow up with after the first episode. I felt really excited and passionate about the first episode. It just kind of flowed out of me. And then I got into this space of perfection, which, if you remember in my first episode, I said, if you're here for perfection, like, this is not the podcast for you. And then I made this second episode about perfection. I tried to perfect it in my head, in my outline, and I was getting all up in my own bananas in story and narrative about it. So this episode required me to take a long pause, to take a break and really get back to, why are you doing this? Why are you here? And I want to be impactful on people's lives. And I'm not here to show how life is perfectly done. And the podcast is not here to be perfect. So there was a lot for me to go through to get to the second episode. And I just want to share that with you all, because if you are trying to do something new, and if you're trying to get out there more, and you get the first thing out there and then you're like, shit, I have to do that again. I have to find that flow state again, or I have to create something good and great again. And it can feel like a ton of pressure. And so you're not alone in that. And that's why I wanted to share my little valley of in between podcasts and dealing with this thought that this had to be perfect. I even went down the whole spiral path of comparing to other podcasts. And I was like, you need to get off this. And so I look myself in the eye. I do that a lot. I get into the mirror and I look at my eyes. I look at myself and I'm like, yes, I'm talking to you. And I have this whole conversation with myself, and I had to do that about this. So I'm glad I'm here. I feel really good and at peace with this recording and doing this. So it took a lot to get here. So I see all you creators who created something, and then now you have to create again. And I see you in that bridge that it takes to get to doing it again. I think it's going to get easier for me and for you as time goes on and as we keep creating something new that we're, a little novel at. Also, I got a new mic, so hopefully this sound is coming out a lot better. I had my husband listen to that first episode and he was like, "Ooh, baby, you need a new mic." And I'm like, "I know, but I'm just fucking around and finding out." So I didn't know if I was going to like doing it. And now, I know, I was on just a great high and feeling after that, recording that that first episode. So I ordered a mic. So hopefully, it's coming into your ears a lot better. And thank you for those of you who gave me a 5-star review. I really appreciate that. I know that took time, precious time and energy, from you and you gave it willingly. So just really, I thank you for that. It meant a lot. It was like, okay, I'm being impactful. Like I'm doing my thing, which is the mission I want to do, which is impact people, and they are receiving it. So that's amazing. Okay, here we are back to the topic of this podcast. Taking care of yourself is really hard. It's fucking hard. It's one of the hardest things I've ever had to do because you are constantly bombarded with asks and having to lay this boundary and interacting with this person and having to, put a boundary up with them. Or maybe someone's asking more than you have and you have to responsibly and honestly conversate with them that you aren't able to do that. And it's like, how do we do that? All those are pieces of taking care of ourselves. So that's the first thing I want to say is this is really hard. And I said this in the last episode that if you want to grow your life and if you want to create this life that you have in your mind, that you imagine yourself living, it's going to require you to spend a lot of time on yourself. And we can hold a lot of guilt about that, about taking that amount of time for ourselves. And doing that is really hard because not only are we trying to take care of ourselves, but then we also have to navigate through this guilt of doing it because society, there's some narratives out there that, you are selfish if you take a lot of time for yourself. And I really work hard to completely eliminate that narrative in my head. And if people ask me, well, how do you do it when you feel that way? And I say, I do it anyways. I do it while I feel guilty. I do it while I feel, most of mine is guilt, but while I feel, maybe ashamed that I need this much time, like whatever you're feeling, I do that anyways. And I feel what I feel and I do the thing. And that helps. That's the way you move through it, right? You you let feelings move in and through the body. You just don't stop. Like let them stop you or let the feeling stop. You got to feel the feeling. You got to move through it. And it's really powerful if you do that in conjunction. If you do the thing while you're feeling the thing, there's like this battle that happens and you can feel yourself like taking back that power. And you're like, yeah, I see that other side, but I'm still moving forward and I'm not afraid of this confrontation because I know I'm worth this time. So that's a little thought for you that, yeah, it requires a lot of time. It's hard. And you're never gonna, okay, I'm not gonna say you're never going to, but at least for me, I haven't gotten to the point where that is completely gone. Like I still am waiting. I still wade through that guilt and that shame or that narrative that I'm taking too much time. I'm spending too much time on myself. And it just is what it is. So I feel it and I do it anyways. And every time I reclaim a little bit more, I battle because I know I'm worth it. And then the sense of worthiness gets ingrained deeper because you're fighting for that time, even though this narrative is telling you that you shouldn't. So kind of a tangent there, but hopefully that's helpful. And I just want you to be seen and know that I get it. It's hard and you'll always find something else to do, like other than what you quote unquote should / need to be doing to take care of yourself. Like we'll always be like, we put it on the back burner and we say, I'll do it, but let me take care of this first. I'll feel better about it, about taking this time for myself if I take care of this thing or this other thing, or if I get this to-do list done and then I'll take care of myself. Well, let me tell you, that is just a cycle that never ends. So we have, at least I have trained myself and I encourage my students and clients that even amongst those feelings that, if I just do this and if I do that, then I'll have time for myself. I'll feel better about taking time for myself because those things will be done. It's not true. You're just going to replace it with something else. So when you begin to take time for yourself and take care of yourself and do self-full practices, know that it's not going to feel good. It's not going to feel good because you're going to be at war with those narratives. And it's worthy. My coach always tells me, she's like, you got to go to war with your thoughts because most of them are not really yours. There's societies, there's society stories and narratives that are ingrained in you, and you got to go to fucking war with them. You got to, have your own battle inside, and you have to be the captain of your own ship. You have to be the author of your story. You have to be the king of your mountain. And she always says, if you are not the king of your mountain, someone else is. If you're not the captain of your ship, someone else is. If you're not writing your own story, someone else is. And so it's a worthy fight to do. And just know that when you start to take more and more time for yourself, because unfortunately, actually, it's not really unfortunate, but maybe it is because it is hard, that when you start to take that time for yourself, because you require a lot of time to build your life, it requires a lot of your time, you're going to feel all these things. And so I just want to acknowledge that right off the bat, is that it's hard and you're going to be asked to wade through these things no matter what. And if you keep telling yourself, I'll just, I'll go for that walk after I do these things, or I'll do yoga after I do these things because I'll feel better about taking that time for myself because other things are done. It's not going to happen. You're just going to replace it with other things to do. And so I'm going to encourage you and dare you to practice your self-care when things are not done and when you're feeling those feelings, and ask yourself to be with them instead of trying to manipulate them out of you by doing other things. And that is really difficult and it takes a lot of time. And that can take years to ingrain. I'm still working on it. So that is a little bit about self-care and self-full practices. And that's just the step of getting to them. And another dare I'm going to invite you to do is to practice self-care at the most unopportune times. Not something that's going to completely wreck or destroy or impact others in a bad way, right? We don't want to necessarily do that. There are times when your self-care is going to impact others in a way that isn't great, but they're going to be okay. They're going to figure it out. They're going to be fine because you've weighed the pros and cons, and you need this to be able to show up for them anyway. So that's a whole nother thing. But if you practice, say dinner is not ready and your husband, your wife's going to be home soon. You said you're going to have dinner ready. And you might shoot him a text, say, hey, dinner's going to be just a little bit later. And you say that because you're going to take just 5 minutes when in your head, you should be prepping dinner, getting it ready, because that's what you said you were going to do and that's what they are expecting. You're going to take 5 minutes and just sit. You're going to either you might meditate, you might just go sit and breathe. You might read a book, you might put a 5-minute timer and scroll if you need to, because I think scrolling can be helpful. But not for long periods of time, right? It's just my own opinion. You can have your own opinion about social media, but I can find it really inspiring. Within 5 minutes, I give myself 12 scrolls and I'm like, okay, we're good. So whatever it is, I want you to I dare you to practice one of your self-care practices at a time that is not convenient. And that's going to challenge you to practice when things aren't all perfect and good. And you actually have the time. I'm quoting here, quote unquote, have the time, because we never really have the time. It's why we're not consistent with it, because those perfect moments come up, 3 times a month maybe. And so this is a good practice and challenge to get you to do it when things aren't perfect and convenient to do. So dinner is going to be 5 minutes late because you took 5 minutes for yourself. That's what I am going to ask you to practice. Okay. So that's just getting us to the practices. And now I want to talk about the, practices themselves. Oh, I need my notes. Hold on. So I call my practices self-full practices. You can call them self-care practices. You can call them me time. Like there's so many ways you can label them. I call them self-full practices because it feels like I'm intentionally filling myself. I'm filling a container and I'm prepping myself for what I want to do, this day or this week. And so it just feels good to me. Self-full practices. I like being self-fullness. Trevor Hall said, if your cup is full, don't spill it. Like that's kind of what I practice. I like to be overflowing instead of slowly, what's the word? Not draining. Slowly draining and emptying. Like I don't want that. At the end of the week, I don't want to be just completely empty. I want to fill myself each day so I'm overflowing and I can go out and be with my clients and be with my students and be with people in the best way that I can, the way that feels damn good to me. So self-full is what I use. You can call it self-care if you want. So this is the concept that I want to share with you. When I started this whole journey, I could not figure out how to have a consistent self-care routine. And I wanted to do all the things, or I realized that some of the things that I wanted to do today, I didn't want to do tomorrow. Not that I didn't want to do them, but they weren't going to do what they needed to do for me. And so what I started to do is create my own, what I call recipe every morning. This requires, it depends on how much time you have, 30 minutes. You can do this quickly. You can just choose one, prioritize one thing that's really going to help you that day. But you check in with yourself and you say, hey, maybe you're looking at yourself in the eye. You say, what do I need this morning? I've got 5 minutes. What am I missing today? What do I need to show up on this day in the best way that I can? I have a list of all my practices I'm trying to find currently. There it is. And then you pick that one. And so your self-care routine isn't based on what you actually do, the practices that you do, but it's based on an amount of time and a time of day. So what you want to commit to is I have 5 minutes, I've got 10 minutes at 7 a.m. every morning that this is going to be my time to figure out how to fill up as much as I can with the time I have. Maybe you have 30 minutes one day, but the thing is it's always the same day and the same time. That's where you get your consistency from. Also, side note, I do my self-full practices 5 days a week. I take 2 days where I don't limit myself or I don't structure my self-care practices in the morning. And I tend to do them, they're on my days off, and I do them when I'm feeling that, ooh, okay, there it is. I feel this this intuition inside of me that's like, okay, go be with yourself, go check in. But during the work week, because life gets crazy, it's really structured. So I create these self-care recipes, and every day I do something different based on what I need. So let me give you some examples here. Here's the thing. It's a little complicated at first. It takes some time and prep to start this practice because you have your list of practices that you know and do, and maybe you're trying to find some new ones. You go online and research, or you talk to me, and then you have their impact. And so I created a T-chart, and I have all the practices that I do, and then I spent time with each one of them. And then I wrote their impact on me. Like, what do they produce in me? What do they invite in me for the day, for myself? Like, how do they fill me up? And so I know each of my practices and I know its impact on me. So here's some examples, like hiking. If I go hiking in the morning or walking, for me, the impact on myself and on my energy and how I feel is peace, centering, release, humbleness, and connection. That's what I get out of that. Like, what do you get out of these practices? If I do tender yoga, I get gentleness, I get some compassion and care and slowness, embodiment and intuition instilled in me. If I do vinyasa or katona yoga, I get disciplined, I'm energized, I feel organized and focused. And so I just kept on going. If I go for a bike ride, I feel like it's clearing and it connects me and it energizes me. If I meditate, I get clarity, intuition, rest, and stillness, not stimulus, stillness. If I do pranayama, I feel regulated. I can leave regulated. So I know the practices and I know their impacts, and I have it all written down here. So when I check in the morning, I say, what is missing? What is missing? What do I need to call in for the day? Do I feel, unregulated or kind of everywhere? Then I'm going to look to regulate myself with a pranayama practice and maybe some centering, and that could be hiking or / walking. Maybe I feel like my mind is going apeshit and I want to see if I can find some stillness and some calmness. I might do some tender yoga. I might meditate. If I need some clearing and connection, like walking, biking, like there's so many different things, and they all produce different things. So it doesn't work for me to do the same thing every day, because we show up as different people every single day, and I need something different every single day. Now, there are some times when I do the same things for a few days because that's just a season of life and things are really heightened and I just might need to be regulated. So I do pranayama. Now, I will say that these practices and how they impact me does not mean they're going to impact you the same way. So that's why you have to do your own research and your own experimenting. I would suggest is picking a few practices because this list can feel overwhelming. I mean, I have weightlifting, which is very stabilizing and feels disciplined. If I need some fire under me for the day, like I'll do that. Dancing and somatic, like that's release for me, and orienting and aligning for me. So, but it took time. It took 3 years for me to understand these practices and how they impact me. This all comes back to it is allowed to take time to really understand and create your foundation. So these practices are a part of creating your foundation. Okay. So what you do is start with just 2 or 3 practices, get to know them really well. Ask yourself, okay, this is how I felt before. This is how I feel now. What changed? What did it add to me? How did it fill me up? What kind of change did it make inside me? And then that's your impact. So every morning when I check in with myself, I do a lot of it with mirror work. I look at myself in the eye and I say, hey, what do we need today? And then I build my self-care recipe that morning based on my practices. And if it's 5 minutes, it's 5 minutes. And if I only have time to do one of them, even though I might need 5, I prioritize what one will be the most effective and the most efficient and have the best impact on me. So that is a concept about self-care and self-care recipes and self-fullness. And it's a little different than kind of what you see about a morning routine and structure and discipline. Now, I think structure and discipline is amazing. And I think tapas is really important to have in you because if you don't have it, you will be whisked away by all your desires and your wants from the brain, and you'll be pulled this way and this way and this way, and you won't be on a track focused. Like you're going to expend a lot of energy doing other things that might actually not get you to where you want to go. So I think structure is important, but this is a combination of structure, flow, and really what you need, because you have the same amount of time every morning at this time. And then you have the flow piece where it changes based on what you need, and you're honoring your needs because you are choosing what you are practicing based on what you need. So I really wanted to share this with you. I found it incredibly helpful to taking care of myself. And so that is pretty much this week's recipe, this week's episodes. This week's episode, if you do not know, this podcast will come out about bi-weekly on the weekends. That is my intent right now. And I'm just really excited to be here with you all. I hope this was helpful. I found it really impactful in my life, and I hope it is going to do the same for you. I feel like there is something else I wanted to share with you. I want to share the definition of selfish, because you are not selfish for taking care of yourself. Here's the definition of selfish. Selfishness. Person, action, or motive that lacks all consideration for others, and their concern is primarily with one's own personal profit or pleasure. That's all. They lack consideration for others, and they're only concerned with themselves, okay? Here's the definition of self-fullness. Self-fullness is taking the responsibility to know one's needs and to get them met while acknowledging and being of service to others. When you take care of yourself, you know there are other people out there existing in the world, and you know that what you're doing might impact them. And it's not for a lack of consideration, because here's what self-care is. Self-care is the practice of taking action to preserve or improve one's own health. Okay, the action to preserve or improve one's own health. It's taking an active role in protecting your own well-being and happiness. That is not selfishness. That is not lacking consideration. That is not primarily concerned with only you. Like, you are doing this because, at least for me, I don't want to speak for you, right? Like my whole thing is about you need to go out there and do what's best for you, believe what you believe, try on a lot of things, and fuck around and find out, okay? I don't want to preach to anybody or tell anybody how to live. For me, when I do my self-care and self-full practices, I'm doing them to preserve my health, to improve my health and wellness and happiness, so I can go out there and be of service to others in the best way I can and feel like damn good doing that. That's why I do these practices. Another coach, here's the other thing with getting to the place you want to be. It requires investment in coaches and mentors. And I've had one mentor and 2 coaches. And so just so you know, that I didn't get here on my own. Like, I've had help, and I definitely encourage everyone to invest. It was worth every single penny. And so, okay, that was side tangent. Oh no, I forgot where I was, y'all. Okay, here, I got it. So my coach would always say, if it's for you, it's for them. If it's for you, it's for them. Even if they don't see it right now. If you're, say your significant other can't see that dinner's 5 minutes late and they might be a little annoyed, but they can't see that the 5 minutes that you took at the inconvenient time is actually setting you guys up for a brilliant dinner, a space where you can be really present with them and you can love deeper and like love on them more. The relationship will feel better between you two because you have taken care of your own well-being and happiness. So they might not see that at first, but it's for you and it's for them. So if it's for you, it's for them. And the same thing with how I feel about taking care of myself. It's for me, but it's also for my clients and my students and how I show up for them. So just keep that in mind. If it's for you, it's also for them. It may not be immediately that they can see that, but it is. And this coach's name is Kat. She's amazing. If you ever want more information on her, I will send you her because she is just power and feeling, and I love her deeply. Okay, so that wraps up our episode today. Yeah, so I just wanted to share those last definitions and just a lot. I'm going to send you off with you are not selfish for taking time for yourself. Self-fullness is taking the responsibility to know your own needs, to get them met, because it is up to you to get them met, right? You can ask others for your help. Oh, I'm going on another tangent. You can ask others for your help, for their help to get some of your needs met, but not all of them, my friends. You are responsible for your own needs. And you are responsible to ask for the ones that you can't get met at that time because no one can read your mind. And that's just the hard truth of it. So self-fullness, taking that responsibility to know your own needs, to get them met while acknowledging and being of service to others, because self-care is the practice of taking action to preserve and improve your own health and protecting your own wellness and happiness. Okay, you're allowed to do that. Please go do that. If it's for you, it's for them. If it's for you, it's for them. Try out those self-care recipes. Shoot me a message. I want to know how it goes. And I look forward to episode 3. Hopefully I don't have that whole thing. And if I do, we're just going to go through it again. Here we go, baby. Have a wonderful fucking week, life. I hope it treats you well and depthful. Much love to you. Thank you so much for joining me today, my friends. If you found value in this podcast or it made you smile, please consider leaving a 5-star review and subscribing on whichever platform you're listening on. This allows other like-minded people to find me. Thank you again, and don't forget, sometimes the biggest dare you can do today is to have hope. Until we meet again.